let that sink in, $350 million given by taxpayers to Solano College to build new science buildings, and the science building will be open in August with a whole suite of anatomy labs. Those anatomy labs are currently full. They are being offered beginning at 8 a.m. on Monday till 5 p.m. on Friday. They filled up right away, showing the demand for this program that John built. And when we announced his passing, tributes came in from students all over the world. His students are some in Germany, certainly all over the United States. Michael did a very good job this morning, sort of representing how much the students loved John. And his colleague Pat Mallory said the one thing that you left out in your written tribute to John was just the affection that students felt for him and continue to feel for him. These are, since he taught anatomy, now nurses, physicians, biologists, because he was there for a while, over 30 years, and retired in 2013. Many of his first students are now at the pinnacle of their careers. They're making their living, and all of them credit John with inspiring them in their career.
Did you also mention that you both have a
Yes, and okay, I wasn't going to mention that, but since his wife authorized me to say that, on the website Rate My Professors, there is a sort of, not only do you rate how difficult they are, how competent they are, how organized they are, but there's this rating of how hot they are, and John was very proud that he got a red hot chili pepper on Rate My Professors. And I shouldn't share this, but I was disappointed that he got his before I ever got one. But anyway, I was sitting at such a nice reception this morning, celebrating the life of John. It could have been sad, but it was more exultation and more celebrating that we all knew him. I was sitting in the back thinking that all that you can ask in this life is to have a wife, to have a wife who's as nice as this one. But all you can ask in this life is to have had a life well led. And for this individual of integrity, of work ethic, and of just pleasurable fun, he could tell a story, and he often did. For him, I can think of no better life having been led. And for all of us, on behalf of the many, many students, thousands and thousands of students that he influenced, as you heard today, the many faculty that are now out there in the teaching field that he mentored, from our colleagues who he inspired us every day, and from all of his friends, I would like to propose a toast for John Nogue, one of the greatest men I ever knew. Thank you.
all right. You got it right to the close. Amazing speaker. Do we have a juicy story? I think we do. Another teacher.
Okay, so I've enjoyed some of John's Jameson, so that'll be my excuse if I lose my place. Patrick Mallory. I had the pleasure and the good luck of landing a teaching position at Solano College, teaching with John. I started there teaching anatomy and physiology, and the anatomy, of course, was founded, as Duclos indicated, Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm getting another Jameson.
Oh, yeah, I need a Jameson, thank you, I love this.
Stuff first.
Yeah. And so it was my good fortune to be hired to temporarily to replace John while John went on sabbatical. John's good old mentor and colleague, Noel Knopf, retired. And I got to meet Noel. In fact, I fly fished with Noel before I ever set foot at Solano. And in the same year, Nogue, who I sometimes call Nogue, he wanted to go on sabbatical, and so that was two open positions. So that meant that this freeway flyer who really needed a job and wanted to work had a position, and my role was to fill John's shoes. Of course, I didn't do that, but I did work in his course. I had experience, a lot of experience, over a dozen years of experience at probably 10 different campuses, and some 4 years, some 2 years, before I got there. But when I walked into that laboratory and was shown John's program, I was astonished. It was the best anatomy program I ever saw. I worked with him in that program for 23 years. It only got better every year because everything John worked on always got better, or he did something else. He worked on something that was going to get better. It was a great pleasure. I first met John 10 years before I ever started work at Solano at an anatomy society meeting at Los Medanos College in Pittsburgh, and I see this guy walk in who's a robust, buff, happy, handsome, lantern-jawed fellow with a great smile and this huge shock of uncombed hair. I think he never combed it. But it always looked good, didn't it? You know, some guys have all the luck. Well, in the 20-odd years that I worked with John, I always found him, as previous speakers have indicated, pensive, considerate, always interested. He had what you might call charisma, right? There aren't very many of us that really have charisma. He had that. There are a lot of us that have talent. You know, talent is cheap. There's lots of talent in the world. Accomplishment, not so cheap, but talent is cheap. He had that. And he had charisma, but I think what really set him apart was that combined with talent and charisma, he had integrity and honesty and empathy. You wrap all those things together, you have a truly astonishing fellow. He was. It was my great privilege to work with him and know him. And when I wish to be a better person, I'll think of John and try to emulate him a little bit.
Okay.
No one yet has told a more risque story, but towards the end, we'd put John to bed at night, and he'd be lying there ready to go to bed, and Emmy would come in and sort of making sure he was covered up. And one night she leaned over and her breast caught him in the face, and John went, "Wow!" So right now, I'd like for everybody here to give us a big wow. Wow! That's John.
You want to say? Yeah.
Yes, I do. Hi, everybody. I'm Karen. I'm the next door neighbor. That's how I introduce myself to people who don't know me. And my wonderful husband, Kyle, is serving drinks, but I don't know exactly where he is. And my beautiful daughter, Brenda, who was welcomed into this family. We all were since 1989 and are so thankful to our family that's here. I'm going to tell a story that I've been saving because I haven't told, and I tell Emily everything. I am telling you everything. It's like, well, I won't tell anybody, and she looks at me and she goes, "Tell me what?" "Okay, I'll tell you what it is." But this story I didn't tell her. John and I shared a love of gardening, as well as walking and etc. So you know all of those stories. But I can see them from this window, and we're really, pretty private people, and they're pretty private, but I can hear their voices at times, or I can see folks out here, and, if I'm opening the windows, trying to, get some air in the house, and I can't tell you how many times John would be out here, and he would be in the garden, or, doing the lawn or whatever, and he would walk up this way, and he'd go, "M," just like that, "M." But I don't have his voice, and those of you who, of course, know him know he had this particular voice. It was quite musical, but this is not what it sounded like to me. It didn't sound like M. It sounded like love. Swear to God. It sounded like love. Let's all say M. M. I love you, M. I love John. I love the girls. And thank you all for being here today.
We couldn't do it without our neighbors, our friends, our family. We have no friends between us. We're just one big family. We were lucky, really lucky, really, really lucky. The ramp was built by Kyle, Karen's husband. It was like we got the wheelchair and he said, "All right then, you need a ramp, let's go." And that day, he and our neighbor across the street, Lance, got it done. Incredible. Really, really, really incredible. Yeah, Blair. I just want to say one thing, which is every single person here would have been asked to speak at the ceremony, and I just want to make sure that you know how much you mean to me and everything. So we had to keep it short, but you're all that important to us. Every one of you, every single one of you.
I'm Blair Lambert, and I had the good fortune of spending a few days with John as we've gone through the past year. I'm not a teacher, so it won't be long. And I've kind of prided myself coming over here and holding it together, and we'll see how I do here today. But this picture kind of got to me. When my kids were young, we used to go hiking, and we went hiking. We had names that we had. We used to call them Indian names. I don't know if that's PC anymore. But my daughter would go. We were swimming up in the Sierra, and she's swimming, and she ends up swimming along, and all of a sudden there's a bunch of snakes with her around her. So she got the name Swims with Snakes. The other daughter, Michaela, she was out. She was leading us down a path, and she got off the trail, and she ended up walking down basically a dried up waterfall. And so she became Walks on Falls. And I started crying today because I looked at that picture and I said, arms wide open. And that's who he is to me, arms wide open.
I'm going to tell a really quick story about Blair. So we have this little group in Napa through our kids, these families that we get together with, and the men bonded, and they used to, like, every now and then, like, John usually initiated and said, well, let's go to compadres and just the men, and we'll just shoot the shit, we'll talk baseball, we'll just tell stories. And then when he was sick, it couldn't happen. They did it once, and it was hard. And then the men got together and said, we're bringing compadres to your house. And so they went to compadres, got all the crap food, all the margarita fixings, knowing that he could only handle like 30 minutes or 45. They came, they whizzed up these margaritas, they made it a party, and brought the party to John, which is just remarkable. And John loved that. So, yeah.
I didn't get a chance to tell too many stories as I was introducing the ceremony today, so I'd like to tell a couple.
He's also a teacher.
Not anymore, I'm retired. Couple of stories. John and I went to Fremont High together. Vern, Jim, Bob, Gail, Patty, Clint, Cliff, who did I miss? Jack. So John and I used to go to the basketball courts when we were in high school and play basketball. against each other. Jim, you know how bad John was. Jim was really good. He was a really good basketball player. John was really bad. I mean, if you want to think of the worst basketball player, John was pretty close to it. And we used to play each other.
It makes a much better sport anyway.
And swimming is a much better sport. Much better sport. And he was a terrible golfer, too. My bachelor party, he hit a putt that hit the hole from about off the green and bounced about 30 feet in the air and went in. And he thought he was the greatest thing in the world. But, and we used to play basketball together against each other. And he used to beat me every once in a while. And I used to hate it. Because he was so bad, just so bad. And he'd be smiling, and I go, we're playing again, we're playing again. And I just remember those times. I would like to tell a story that's a sad story, but not, it talks about who John is. We have a friend named Jack who passed away a few years ago, and Jack had AIDS, and he also had some mental illness and a lot of problems. And John basically took care of him for 10 years. John would travel to the East Bay or to San Francisco, wherever Jack lived, and would take care of him, take him to the hospital, take him to the doctor. Jack got taken to the hospital a number of times by the police, trashing his house. And John was always there to call us and say, come on guys, we got to go clean up Jack's house. We had to do that a couple of times. He was the one. We all turned our backs on Jack at some time during Jack's life. We all did that. It was, as I look back, a mistake by all of us, but we all did it. I think it's a human thing sometimes people do. John never turned his back on Jack. Never. And put in hours with Jack. Jack would sometimes write to John that he didn't want to see him again, he didn't want to talk to him again, and John would always be there for him. That's John Nogue. As we all turn our backs sometimes to people, John, I've never heard or seen him turn his back on anybody. As I said, he was my spirit and my model for life. I have so many stories because we lived together for probably 8 or 9 years and grew up together and vacationed together. But we lived together on Anza Avenue, and where's Bob? Bob's over there. And Bob was teaching in San Francisco, and I think I was working in Marin, and John was teaching at San Francisco State, and Bob needed a place to stay. So John's pretty tight with the buck, as we all know. And John rented Bob the closet for $10 a month. Well, not only is John pretty tight, Bob is really tight. So Bob complained about that $10 a month. But Bob decorated that closet like no other closet I've ever seen. It was on 2nd and Anza. And every once in a while, we'd wake up and get ready to go to work, and there would be Bob in the closet, asleep. But just so many stories about a man who is, as I said, words cannot express what kind of man he was. He will never be forgotten by any of us. I know that. And we all need, as I said, to keep living our lives the way John would want us to live our lives. To be a man for others and a woman for others is what he was. I taught at a Jesuit school for 35 years, and the model at our school was to be a man or woman for others. John never went to the Jesuit school, but he was the true man and woman for others. So to John and to all of us, being men and women for others.
All right, Fiona, it's your time. So Fiona she was my math student last year. So as she's setting up, all I did, John, that was it. It was all about John. It was keeping him safe, keeping him at home, and making sure he was John. And he was my husband, so he was in charge, whatever he wanted. The only thing I did, I was working part-time and I would go to work, and when I was at work it was my self-care, and I had amazing students, and it was like I took off this mantle of caring because he was with people who loved him so much. I only left him with people who loved him so much, and went to work and just did math and heard kids' problems and had lunch with them, and it was 5 hours, and it was rejuvenating. Anyway, one of my students was Fiona, and she would come in because I'm supposed to give them an hour of help. So instead I told Annie, who was amazing, my principal, I said I'll be there every lunch because it spanned my classes. So I had this crew at lunch, and they were amazing kids, and they would be just reading or chilling or I would help them. And I knew that Fiona was a jazz singer. I actually told her about Rachel, my niece, who's an artist, and just tried to inspire her to follow your dream, and it can happen. Follow your passion like John does. Anyway, so when I was getting ready to need help today, because I would usually be in the kitchen and John would be schmoozing and doing everything, I asked Fiona, and I asked her to sing a few songs for us. So this is Fiona.
Emily, before she sings,
I'm one of the gang. I know I don't look like a gang member, but I'm one of the gang. And one of the things that I am so grateful for is that our gang member, John, found you as a partner. And I think as a woman who's also lost her husband, speaking to you, who lost John, I want to commend you for the generosity and spirit and love that you showed, the love of your life the entire time you were together, and how much I appreciate you and love you as a sister. And I just want to thank Emily. So I think we have a toast to Emily. Okay? And I want to read something that I wrote that I think reflects what all of you said, but it's so affirming to hear it. And it was called With Gusto. We remember our dear John for his brilliance, his laughter, his sincerity, his sense of fairness, his loyalty and determination, his inquisitive and nurturing nature, his generosity and compassion, his love for and devotion to family and friends alike. Another and yet another quality comes to mind as I pore over more than a half century of memories. Surely that should be enough, but knowing John made it so compelling to look forward to more time, more stories, more travel, more fun, more comfort, more laughter, more love. Sadly, we come to understand that in his giving so much, our remembrances comfort us. His courage strengthens us. He continues to inspire us by his shining example of a life lived with gusto. Fiona, I know we're going to look forward to your sing.
Good job.
What really amazed me this past school year about Miss Nogue is her strength. She came to school every day, and she always had a positive attitude, and she always made us feel so inspired, and she made us work quite a bit. So I definitely learned a lot, and not just about math. Heaven, I'm in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak, and I seem to find the happiness I seek when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek. Heaven, I'm in heaven, and the cares that hung around me through the week seem to vanish like a gambler's lucky streak. out together dancing cheek to cheek. Oh, I love to climb a mountain and reach the highest peak, but it doesn't thrill me half as much as dancing cheek to cheek. And I'd love to go out fishing in a river or a creek, but I wouldn't enjoy it half as much as dancing cheek to cheek. Dance with me, I want my arms about you. That charm about you will carry me through right to heaven. I'm in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak. And I seem to find the happiness I seek when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek. Heaven. I love to climb a mountain, reach the highest peak, but it doesn't thrill me half as much as dancing cheek to cheek. I love to go out fishing in a river or a creek, but I wouldn't enjoy it half as much as dancing cheek to cheek. Dance with me, I want my arms about you. That charm about you will carry me through right to heaven. I'm in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak. And I seem to find the happiness I seek when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek. I was walking along, minding my business, when out of that orange-colored sky flash, bam, alakazam, wonderful you came by. I was humming a tune, drinking in sunshine, when out of that orange-colored view flash, bam, alakazam, I gotta look at you. One look and I yell timber, watch out for flying glass, 'cause the ceiling fell in and the bottom fell out. I went into a spin and I started to shout, I've been hit, this is it, this is it. I was walking along, minding my business, when love came and hit me in the eye. Flash, bam, alakazam, out of that orange-colored sky. Anthony Capetto, everyone. One look and I yell timber, watch out for flying glass, 'cause the ceiling fell in and the bottom fell out. I went into a spin and I started to shout, I've been hit, this is it, this is it. I was walking along, minding my business, when love came and hit me in the eye. Flash, bam, alakazam, out of that orange color, purple stripe, pretty green polka dot sky. Flash, bam, alakazam, and goodbye. Thank you, everyone, and that's all that we have for you. Keep the music in your soul.
All right, thank you. All right, I knew she was good. I didn't know she was that good. Yeah. And she's good at math.
My name is Will Pounding. I know John from the Dolphin Club, but I actually met him a few years before he joined. I think it was around 2001. I was sitting by the pool at the Lair of the Bear, the University of California summer camp in the Sierra, and I must have been wearing my Dolphin Club hat, and John struck up a conversation and said, yeah, my friend Garibaldi has been pestering me for years that I ought to join the club, but you people are insane. There's no way that I would ever swim in that frigid, filthy water. And we proceeded to carry on a conversation about various other things. I remember that I think both his daughters were on staff at the Lair that summer, and he was just very proud of them and delighted to be sort of reflecting in their opportunities. And a few years later, I'm walking into the sauna after a swim, and I'm hear this guy carrying on about just how great a swim he had just had and how wonderful the club is, and the water was just beautiful and life is good. And sure enough, it was John. And it seemed to me that it wasn't more than a year, if that, before he became the swim commissioner, took over the swimming program at the Dolphin Club, and was not only competent, but just ran the thing with such good humor and such inclusiveness. So that's my story.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I have to say that these Dolphin Club members, they're beyond extraordinary, beyond. You know, they came up 5-6 times to our house, and Bill was our team leader, and it was like, I'm going to need a double lock on the door. I'm going to need these plants removed, the yard. They came, they were like, they were magical. They came with all their tools, with everything there, with their food, made delicious spreads. We toasted. John came out. They definitely always asked him his opinion on everything, and it was beyond generous. And the only other thing I would say about the Dolphins, when we would park at the end of Van Ness and walk in, when I would go with him, and sometimes I would go for a talk, or I'd swim a little bit, or I would grade papers while he swam. He would meet dolphins. They'd have their cap on or their swim gear, and I mean, if it was pouring rain and windy beyond belief, he would say, you know, hi Hal, hi, how is it? And to the last one, they'd say, awesome. Awesome. Never, oh, it's too wind. Never. It was either awesome or fantastic, or that was it. They are you know, you don't get in because you have a title or anything. You get in because you're hardy, and because you're optimistic, and because you're community minded, and just it's like someone said for John, it's like having that watermelon and just biting into it and juicing it and just enjoying the life, enjoying the day. That's the Dolphins. So, anybody else? We have a lot of desserts. So. Which John loves?
Such a great day to share John's life and the opportunity to realize how much he touched all of us, and sitting at different tables while other friends said, I didn't know this about John. And I think it was mentioned in the service about how he was committed to recycling. So I feel a need to let everyone know that Emily and several of our friends do Saturday and Sunday walks. John would be the only guy that came, and he would always follow about 20 yards behind with the bag and pick up the recycling every walk. You know, the cans, the bottles, we won't even mention what he picked up, but he was committed to that. And he had such a love for life. I'm not sure if part of it was from his diagnosis or the way it affected him or the knowledge that he saw this is his life. But those of us that had the opportunity to take care of him in those last year, he was very emotional. He would start crying in a happy way. Just, I know I was at Southside with him, and you ask him a question about one of the girls, Sophie or Rebecca, he would just start crying and smiling and telling you. But what I really remember is the first time I took care of him, he was getting radiation at Queen of the Valley. And I met Emily there. We were waiting for him to be called in. And I thought everything was okay. It was my first day doing this. And all of a sudden, I look over and John's just bawling. The tears are just coming down. And I said, what's wrong? And he kind of pointed up. This is when he was not impaired really at all. And I listened, and they were playing a song that they had played at Rebecca's wedding. Aww. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And he said the song, and I said, and he said, I love it. There was no sadness about it, and he knew how to enjoy the special moments. And the last day that I was here taking care of him, I don't know if you remember, Emily, but you left to go meet with your long-term sub, and we were here for a long time, a couple hours together, and he was pretty impaired at that time. I was reading to him. He wasn't really able to talk much, but he was so present with me, and even though he couldn't talk, he wanted to ask, what's happening with my family. And as I'm reading, he was really able to comment, and he was still, as Emily always said, John is still John. And that was really a gift for all of us that had the opportunity to share that time with him. So he'll always be with us.
Thank you, Susan.
I'm gonna butt in. Michael's wife Simone is taking care of her mother in Holland. Simone is my sister, and she loved John. She called herself the second wife. And she is a gift from heaven, and she really was a very close part of our team. And this is her husband.
We
love also you too, wonderful.
Michael. We love you too, Michael.
Thank you. There are many things to say about John. When I was sitting in the chapel this morning for the remembrance, and I was listening to everyone speak, and what overcame me was the realization that all of those virtues that were being expressed, passion, curiosity, kindness, presence, everything that was said struck a chord with me, and I know that it struck a chord with everyone who was present. It didn't partially strike a chord. You didn't say, yeah, he was kind of like that. No, everyone there knew, experienced that he was all about those things. Everything. His life was so full of being that way, more than anyone I ever met. Right? So my wife and I, our family, would speak about the Nogues very often, and when we would see them, not as often as we would like, but we saw them regularly. It couldn't be too much. And when we would single out John and talk about John, we universally would agree that none of us had met someone who was as curious and present and interesting. I mean, just those qualities overwhelmed me about John. So I'll finish by saying one thing. We met the Nogues, John and Em, at the Napa Valley Nursery School when our kids were very young. And Simone, my wife, is from Holland. I'm from New York, as you can probably tell. So we have 3 children, Brennan, Danielle, and Marissa. And like the Nogues, we were immersed in raising our kids and just being present with them. And at a certain point, my wife and I looked at each other, and we faced the dark possibility that if something happened to us, what would happen to the children? So we thought about, should they move to Holland? Should they move back to New York? My family, her family. And we wrestled with this for a few weeks, actually. And then we began to talk about where would our children have a life that would be most similar to that we would hope to give them. Okay, and we knew the Nogues, and our families were very similar. And I knew the Nogues were on this beautiful track, this beautiful track of life. They embodied that to us and represented to us what the life we were trying to lead. And looking back, so we went to John and Em, we said, look, if something would happen to us, would you take the kids? It was a very moving moment for all of us, and they agreed. But let me tell you what overwhelms me now. It overwhelms me now. I knew that John and Emily and the kids were going to build a rich life. But you never know. You never know. But looking back, standing here looking back, if something would have happened to my wife and myself, and my children would have found themselves in that family, it would have all been good. Thank you.
We could take a break and just eat. Should we do that? Okay. I don't want to give... okay, let's take a break and have some food.